They say, I didn't fill that out. You say, this video is sponsored by none other than Lead Heroes, you guys. Lead Heroes has got you covered when it comes to telemarketing leads, whether it be Medicare supplement leads, final expense leads, Turning 65 leads. They just got something for everybody. Just because you watch this video, you guys are going to give you 10% off any order you make on the website. Link can be found down in the description, so go ahead and check them out. And also make sure you're checking out their virtual assistant services as well. It's top notch. I hear from agents all of the time that they get the same objections. One of those common objections when they're actually working leads and trying to make sales over the phone or trying to book appointments over the phone is they'll call a lead, right? Maybe they look kind of similar to these, right? Maybe they're direct mail leads. Maybe they are leads that would be Facebook leads or some other kind of lead, right? And the objection that they get from the person on the other end of the phone is, hey, I didn't fill anything out. I don't know what you're talking about. How do you overcome this as a sales agent? Well, we're going to talk about a couple different scenarios and a couple tips of some things that you can actually use to your benefit to overcome that objection. The first one we're going to talk about is if you get a direct mail lead, or maybe you're working a direct mail lead, and they say, hey, buddy, I didn't fill that out. Well, one thing that I've actually done that works incredibly well, because the first thing that essentially people are going to want to do is they're going to want to argue, right? That's your instinct for a lot of you, is to argue with the person. Yes, you did. You put down your phone number as 555-5555 or whatever the case might be, right? But that doesn't mean necessarily to them that they gave you that information. They probably think you bought their information somewhere and you're just cold calling them, right? Some people either forget or they've changed their mind since they actually sent in the letter, one of the two. But one thing that you can do in your favor is you got to show them that card. Now, one thing I typically do is a lot of people these days have cell phones with text message capabilities. So what I'll do is I'll be like, Mr. Johnson. Well, you never want to say Mr. or Mrs. anything. I'd say Louie. Let's say I'm calling Louie, and Louie says, hey, listen, bud, I didn't fill anything out. And you're lying, or whatever the case might be. My response is going to be this. I'm going to say, Louie, does this phone that we're talking on right now accept text messages? Well, yeah, it does. Perfect. Do you mind if I send you something real quickly to look at just so you can verify the authenticity of what I'm seeing? I'm going to take a picture of that card that I'm looking at. I'm going to text it to Louie, and he's going to open up the picture, and I'm going to say, Louie, do me a quick favor. Take a look at that card. Does that look like your handwriting, or is it a possibility that maybe your spouse or a family member filled it out on your behalf? You would not believe how many times that disarms somebody, because most of the time they did fill it out, and they're looking at a card, looking at it, and they remember filling it out. It jogs their memory. It all starts to come back to them, number one. Number two, they actually see their own handwriting on the card, and then it sometimes will lower their walls, right? Nothing is 100% certain in sales, right? You're going to strike out no matter how many times, but I would say if I try that on a lead, I'd say over half of the time, they're going to, at the very least, be willing to have a conversation with me when I take that approach and actually get them to see the card. Now, if they don't have the ability to receive text messages, you can always do it by email, but if they don't have the ability to receive text messages, chances are they don't have the ability to receive emails on their phone either. So you end up having to wait for them to have to check their email, maybe on a computer, whatever the case might be. That's a little bit of a tougher situation, but that is something that you can do to essentially overcome that objection. Now, let's say you are working a Facebook lead, right? Now, if you're running your own Facebook leads, I always encourage people. I think it's going to raise the cost of your lead up by doing this, but it's also going to raise the intent of the lead, so you're spending less time. I would much rather work a $15 Facebook lead that has much higher intent, and I'm going to get more value out of the lead because I'm going to spend less time going through a bunch of crap than working a $5 or $6 lead where the intent is incredibly low. So if you're designing your own Facebook leads, right, for you marketers out there, I would make sure to put some very specific questions on your Facebook ad form. Or if you're pointing them to a landing page of your own, it's probably not a bad idea to ask them a couple of specific and unique questions. It's going to raise the cost of the lead, but it's also going to raise the intent. And one thing that you need to calculate into your equation there is how much is your time worth as a sales agent, right? If you're spending, if your goal is to work the cheapest possible lead possible, there's no cheaper lead than cold calling, right? But we all agree that that's an inefficient way to do business, or most of us do. So one thing you can do if you're designing your own Facebook leads and running your own Facebook leads is put something very specific on the questionnaire that they have to fill out to submit it, right? A common one is, what is your favorite color? Another one could be, what is your favorite hobby? Something along that lines that's going to be specific to them. That way, when I call that lead and they say, I didn't fill this out, I'll be like, well, Miss Betty, or I would say Jane, let's say Jane, right? I would say, well, Jane, actually on the questionnaire, you filled out that your favorite color is blue. Is that right? Well, yeah, that is right. You also mentioned in the questionnaire, Jane, that your favorite hobby is sewing. Is that correct? Well, yeah, how did you know that? I'd be like, well, actually, Jane, you're the one that actually provided me with that information when you filled out the card. It's going to bring down their barriers a little bit, and they start to think, and it starts to come back to them, and they're like, maybe I actually did fill this out. Maybe this was something that I actually requested from this individual. These are ways that you can be non-combative, but potentially help a person at least be willing to have a conversation with you. There's other things that I can share with you on this, but in this video specifically, it's all I have time for. I hope this helps you guys overcome this objection more often, depending on what kind of lead you're working. You just have to find creative ways to show them, without being combative, without being rude, and without being disrespectful, that they indeed did fill out what they're filling out. And from that standpoint, when you're doing that, they're going to be much more willing to have a conversation with you, and they're going to appreciate that you weren't rude when they were rude, right? I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you'd like to see more sales-specific videos like this, sales tips and sales training, do me a favor, drop a like on this video, because that helps me know what kind of content you guys like to see and what you want to see more of. Make sure to drop a comment down below. Did you find this video helpful? Would you like to see more videos like this? Do you have any other suggestions for agents if you're seasoned that maybe I didn't cover that could go along with what I talked about today? Drop it down in the comment section. I want to have an open dialogue with you. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell so you're notified when we upload if you enjoy our videos. And until next time, guys, thanks so much for watching. Here's to your success and your abundance. Thanks, guys.